had this particular video idea in my drafts for the absolute longest time, and it is time I share them because hot girls don't gatekeep. It is not a secret that there is not one way to go about writing a book. However, there are certain things that you can do that are only going to help the process along, and I'm going to spill all the tea on that right now. Number one, I do say this in almost every single writing video, writing tips, writing advice video that I ever make, but that is to stop listening to other people's advice so much. So if you want to put this video down right now and click off and go and write your book, please do that. If there is one thing you can take from this video, it's that you need to stop listening so much to what other people say, because ultimately it's only going to get in your head, make you doubt yourself, or make you change something that you didn't actually want to change. So by all means, click off this video and go write your book. Ultimately, listening to and taking in other people's advice is a sort of habit, and it's one that you definitely have to get out of. I know that when I was a lot younger and I was writing stories and books and whatnot, I definitely thought, oh, I have to listen to everything that I hear on the internet because everyone on the internet knows so much more than me. I'm so new to this process that I don't know what I'm doing. Even if you are really new, you have got to get out of that mindset, because there is not one way to write a book, which means that if you are listening to, say, for example, one person's advice over and over and over, it just may not be the right advice for you. For example, you could be listening to someone who is an underwriter, whereas you're an overwriter, and then it's just, if you step back and look at the sort of advice that you're taking in, it just really makes you think and makes you realize that you should not be listening to these people necessarily. And that sometimes the best thing that you can do for yourself and for your book is just go and write it. The second habit that might be hindering you is that you're not eating and you're not drinking enough. If you are not drinking enough water to hydrate yourself, if you're not consuming enough food to give yourself energy, that is fundamentally something that's wrong. And you're probably thinking, wow, this is not a writing tips video, but it really, really is. Because when it comes down to it, writing is a really creative process, and it uses your imagination and it uses your brain and it uses up energy. And if you're not fueling your body enough, you can't be getting that energy from anywhere. And I kind of learned this the hard way, I'll be totally honest. When I was in a really kind of restrictive relationship, I wasn't fueling my body with enough food, which meant that I didn't have enough energy and it just really drained the life out of me, and I completely lost my creative spark because I didn't have enough energy to be on top of doing all my uni work, to be going and writing. So if you're thinking, wow, I constantly don't have enough energy to write and writing is becoming a chore, think back to the basics and really kind of think outside of just the little writing process, and think about if you're actually fueling your body enough. Hot girls eat food, hot girls drink water, hot girls fuel their body enough to have the energy to go and write. Obviously not just girls, but you see what I mean. The third thing you might be doing wrong is not reading enough. Personally, I would say that the most important thing for me when I'm writing is reading within that sort of genre, but not just within your genre. I mean reading in general. Reading articles and blog posts and the news and books and non-fiction books, literally anything you can think of. Not only is it going to be kind of subconsciously expanding your vocabulary for one, but it's just going to kind of keep you within that mindset of the whole reading and writing process, because ultimately to be a writer you have to be a reader. And I'm not saying you should just be consuming things that you're gonna plagiarize, but when you read within your genre, it just kind of keeps that inspiration flowing of like all of the things that people typically write in your genre, all of the things that typically come up, maybe some more vocabulary that you hadn't used before, just all of that jazz. And honestly, I might make a video about why you need to read so much when you're a writer, because I think one of the issues last year, like I said, I kind of struggled in 2025 with my creative spark. I think one of my issues with the fact I didn't want to write ever was because I really wasn't reading very much either. The two definitely work really hand in hand, so you definitely have to keep reading. Number 4, one of the worst habits that you can do as a writer is forcing it. Although it's good to set habits, and although it's good to set intentions, you know, such as how many words you're going to write in a day, there is a massive difference between saying I'm going to write 1,000 words every day and just saying I'm going to write when it feels natural and when I want to. I think a couple of years ago, I kept having these conundrums where I was coming up with new book ideas whilst I had one on the go, and I kept stopping myself from writing these ideas because I was thinking, no, I've got to stick to the original project, I've got to stick to the plan. When in reality, I wish I could go and tell my younger self to just write what comes naturally and write what you feel like writing in that moment. Although again, it's good to have routine sometimes and sometimes stick to the projects that you say you're going to stick to. I also think that writing in general is such a free thing where you should just be following your gut instinct and following what you want to do. A lot of the time when I have followed what my instinct says to write and what I feel like writing, ultimately that project has died out within a week or so anyway, but it doesn't matter because at least I found out now, instead of prolonging it and waiting for a couple months before writing it only to discover that I didn't actually want to pursue that project. This one is definitely a kind of learning curve, so maybe instead of me saying you've got to stop forcing it, I'm just going to advise you to kind of think about it and think about how is best to go about it. I know one of my friends this year, she's doing I'm going to write 500 words every day up until July in 2026 just to get her first draft written, and personally, for the way that it's working out for me, that would just not work. It's gonna work for her, I can tell, because she is on track and she's gonna get that done and it's gonna pay off for her. But for me, I came up with a new book idea a couple of days ago and I'm already on like 5,000 words because it's what I want to write and it's what I feel really, really passionate about at the moment. So I think there definitely is something to say about just writing what comes naturally to you. Another thing, and this is kind of one of those, Sarah, you've got to sit and listen to your own advice and take your own advice, and that is that you have got to stop over planning and just start doing. I have a really bad habit sometimes of sitting and writing out exactly what I'm going to do when, planning out my day minute by minute sometimes, and then I kind of get to the end of this planning process and I think, wow, like I've spent an hour planning my life when instead I could have spent an hour living my life. And the same sort of thing goes for writing. If you are like me, where you are kind of a chronic overplanner, sometimes you really do have to stop yourself and just think, why am I planning so much when I could be writing? Obviously, if you are not an overplanner, this advice probably isn't for you. But in terms of the whole habit aspect of this particular piece of advice, I just want to say, there is a level of planning that I think every book should have, even if that's just like really, really basic outlines or whatnot. So saying that, I'm saying, you know, there's sort of a minimum level of planning, but I also do think, and this is not something that's mentioned very much, there is also like, it kind of gets to a point, you know, like there is a maximum. And maybe some of you will say, no, actually that's really beneficial for my writing. Okay, fine, fair enough. But targeted at maybe people who are like me, who have kind of come to the realization that they need to stop planning and start doing, this is definitely something to consider. If you're wondering where all your writing time is going because you're spending it all in your planning document, this might be your answer. Number 6, and this habit is aimed at authors or people who want to publish, people who want to query their book, people who may be thinking about self-publishing, all of the above. You've got to stop only writing with the intention of publishing. Of course it's okay to write books that you think will be really good and ultimately might be the book to land you an agent. Of course that's okay. However, especially when you're younger, especially when you're early on in your writing career, the harsh truth is your first books are not going to be the ones to land you agents. The first books you write are not going to be the ones that you want to publish. And that is just a harsh reality. There are also other levels to this habit that I'm telling you guys to pick up, because not only will your book not necessarily end up being the one that gets published, but if you're writing to publish, you might be subconsciously thinking about what's trendy, what's popular. That is something we have got to stop. I think I mentioned this in another video recently, but the reason why that doesn't work is because by the time you're done writing it, effectively that is not going to be the trend anymore. Not just that, but if you're writing what's popular and what's trendy, you're not writing for yourself and you are not writing what you actually want to write. Also, if you're writing to publish, there is the potential of not being free with your first draft. Again, I have a whole video about why your first draft should not be perfect. But if you have publishing in mind, you might be thinking, oh, I've got to edit this as I go along. My first draft cannot be bad, because if it's bad, then the book's going to be bad. Just the whole mindset of, if you're thinking of, I'm writing this book to publish it, is not necessarily a healthy one. It's okay to think, oh, maybe in the distant future this will happen. Maybe this will be the one to land me an agent. It's okay to think about that. In fact, I'm kind of thinking about that with one of the ones I'm doing now. I think it's going to be the next in my sort of interconnected series that I have going on. However, when you have the mindset that you're just writing the book to produce the book, it is a much healthier habit than writing for the world to see. Number 7 is forcing yourself to write chronologically. Now, I think this is the kind of one piece of advice that I associate with myself, because the second that I realized you don't have to write in chronological order, my whole world changed, and my whole book writing process just became so much easier, so much better, so much more enjoyable. If you're someone who thinks, no, I have to write the book in order, and it's the one thing that's holding you back, girl, you gotta stop. You gotta let go of that idea that you have to write it in chronological order, because you don't. That's what editing is for, to come back and fix all the mistakes that came with writing out of order. Number 8 is not getting outside and moving your body and getting fresh air. The ultimate inspiration comes from going outside. You gotta trust me on this. If you have never gone out for a walk just to kind of get some inspiration, you've got to start doing that. It's good for your eyes to get a break from your writing. It's good for your body to get the blood flowing and your heart pumping. It's good for your brain because you'll see new things and get more inspiration from what's around you. There is not a single downside, let's be honest. So if that is not a habit that you regularly implement, you have got to start now. Number 9 is letting doubt control you and letting imposter syndrome stop you from writing. We have all been there. Imposter syndrome is an absolute killer. Self-doubt, absolute killer. They can really slow your progress and honestly just kill your mindset and your mood, and it's really not it. This is another one that I'd like to do another video of, doing a little deep dive into what imposter syndrome really is. But for now, I think what I'm going to say about this particular habit is the best thing you can do as a habit is just recognizing when imposter syndrome is getting in the way. Recognizing what it is that's making you doubt yourself, so that at the very minimum, you know what it is that you need to stop consuming or stop doing in order to prevent this from happening in the future, and sort of take those preventative measures before it even kicks in. So that is going to be all for today. The funny thing about this video is I think it would pan out completely differently depending on what time of the year it is, and just kind of what I've been doing recently kind of dictates the habits that I think are really useful and that you should be implementing. So maybe I'll remake it in 6 months and I'll have 9 or 10 completely different habits that I think are beneficial. But that's going to be all from me for now. I hope you guys got something out of this. I hope you learned something or just enjoyed sitting here listening to me yap. Thanks so much, and I will see you in my next video.